Welcome to the Phil and H Travel Podcast, Is It Worth It?
We are so glad you're joining us today.
Yeah, if you're planning a trip and want the honest, is it worth it verdict before you book, follow the show on Spotify or Apple.
Because today we are doing a serious deep dive into a destination that is, it's all over the travel magazines right now.
Right. We are looking at a highly detailed boots-on-the-ground travel and logistical dossier covering Guyana in 2026 and 2027.
And this place is being heavily marketed as South America's hot, new, totally untouched eco-frontier.
But, our mission today is to establish a contrarian truth right out of the gate. For most travelers, going to Guyana is definitely not a holiday.
No, absolutely not. It's a rugged, really demanding expedition.
Exactly. So if you're considering a trip just because you saw a stunning drone shot of the jungle on Instagram, this deep dive is going to provide the ultimate verdict.
Yeah, we are here to save you from some seriously expensive logistical traps and severely mismatched expectations.
Imagine paying $450 to stand at the edge of the world's most spectacular waterfall. Completely alone, no guardrails, no crowds, just raw thunder.
Sounds incredible, right?
It does. But now, imagine paying that exact same $450, waking up to a slightly cloudy sky, and being told by a pilot that you aren't going anywhere, you've lost your money, and your trip is over.
Ouch. Yeah, that is a very real scenario we're going to get into. It's a vital distinction to make immediately, really. A holiday implies rest.
Right, like a guaranteed return on your investment of time and money. You want relaxation.
Exactly. An expedition, on the other hand, implies endurance, adaptability, and a whole lot of friction.
So much friction.
And the urgency to audit this particular destination right now, specifically for the 2026 and 2027 travel seasons, it comes down to a massive underlying shift that is honestly completely outside the realm of tourism.
Right. We are talking about oil.
Yep. The Stabroek Block.
Which, that sounds like a financial term, not a travel destination.
I know, right? But it's this enormous offshore oil discovery. And it is fundamentally reshaping the entire economy of Guyana at just breakneck speed.
So what does that actually mean for the traveler?
Well, the windfall from this offshore drilling is just flooding the capital city, Georgetown, with corporate money. You've got international contractors, business travelers on heavy expense accounts.
Ah, so they aren't exactly worried about a travel budget.
Exactly. When you inject that level of corporate money into a developing infrastructure, the demand just completely distorts the local market. It drags leisure prices way up, right along with the business rates.
And I imagine this is happening way faster than the local tourism board can even manage.
Oh, without a doubt. Faster than the physical infrastructure can possibly keep up with.
I was actually reading through the pricing audits in our sources, and the immediate picture that formed in my mind was like an old Wild West gold rush town.
That is a perfect way to look at it.
Are independent leisure travelers essentially paying luxury prices for the equivalent of a prospector's tent just because there happens to be oil offshore?
That is a highly accurate analogy, yeah. During a gold rush, the local economy doesn't cater to the sightseer,
Yeah.
It caters to the prospector and the corporate backer.
The people making the most money are the ones selling the shovels.
Exactly. Selling the shovels and renting out the scarce rooms. In Georgetown right now, you have a situation where visitor numbers are climbing at 12% a year.
Wow, 12%, that's huge.
It is. Internationally branded hotels are under construction, sure, but until the supply catches up with the demand, you're paying a massive premium just for a bed.
So the quiet, uncrowded, raw version of Guyana that, adventurers have prized for decades, it's measurably shrinking.
It really is. The window to see it in its pristine state is closing, but opening that window is going to require serious capital.
Well, let's unpack the geographical and cultural reality first, because I think there is a massive misconception about what Guyana actually is.
Oh, for sure.
Geographically, it is on the northern coast of South America. Culturally, though, it is this incredibly unique blend. It's culturally South American, but it's also deeply Caribbean.
And that right there is the trap.
Right. If a traveler hears the word Caribbean and immediately pictures, breezy beaches, white sand, all-inclusive resorts.
They are in for a brutal awakening.
A really expensive awakening.
It is a very common trap. The marketing often leans into that Caribbean association because it sells. People associate the Caribbean with trade winds, easy living, oceanside pools.
But the reality on the ground in Guyana?
The reality is that it is swelteringly hot and humid year-round. Georgetown is a working, industrial and administrative capital, sitting on a muddy coastline.
Muddy, not white sand.
Right, muddy. And the interior, where the actual ecotourism happens, is rugged, dense, unforgiving bush. The environment itself is physically demanding at a baseline level.
Which brings us to a specific rule laid out in the dossier that I absolutely love. They call it the skip-if rule.
It is a blunt force trauma reality check.
It really is. So here is the rule. Skip this trip entirely if your idea of a good vacation involved a pool, a swim-up bar, and low-effort relaxation.
Period. Just skip it.
Yeah, because if you go to Guyana expecting that, you are going to pay serious money to be hot, constantly bitten by insects, and just shaken around on unpaved roads for days on end.
And that ties directly back to those strange market dynamics created by the oil windfall we were just talking about.
How so?
Well, in a normal, mature travel market, high prices directly correlate with high comfort. You pay a premium in Hawaii or the Maldives, and you get premium polish, flawless service, perfect infrastructure.
Right, you get what you pay for.
Exactly. But in Georgetown right now, because the city is filled with those corporate expense accounts, the prices for a leisure vacation have artificially inflated without the corresponding luxury.
Ah, so you might be paying 4-star prices, but you aren't necessarily getting resort-style polish.
You are paying for scarcity.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Man, that's rough. So before we can even talk about the wilderness and the jungle, we really need to understand the complex mechanics of just getting your boots on the ground.
Yes. The logistics of simply arriving.
Because even your arrival, just stepping off the plane, requires serious due diligence. According to the audit, most international travelers arrive at Chetti International Airport, locally known as Temeri.
Correct.
And this is situated about 25 miles south of central Georgetown.
By regional standards, navigating Chetti is not... it's not an overwhelmingly difficult experience. It's relatively small and manageable.
Okay, that's good news.
Yeah, you exit the terminal, and you will take a registered airport taxi into the city. That drive runs roughly $25 to $30 for the 40 to 60-minute journey.
Which I assume is heavily dependent on the time of day and traffic.
Very dependent.
The dossier specifically highlights a massive infrastructure upgrade here that just changed the game for our arrivals, right? The new Pharat Jagdeo Demira River Bridge, which opened in October 2025.
Yes, and that was a long time coming.
I can imagine.
It was desperately needed. The old bridge was this floating toll bridge that caused legendary traffic bottlenecks. I mean, terrible traffic. This new bridge makes the crossing into the city significantly faster and smoother.
So a genuine, tangible benefit of the oil-era infrastructure upgrades.
It is, but, and this is a huge, this leads us to the most critical logistical trap for new arrivals.
The airport trap.
Yes. Chetti is your international gateway. You fly in there from Miami, New York, London, but your domestic flights, the tiny charter planes that actually take you to Kaieteur Falls and the deep interior lodges, they do not leave from Chetti.
Right. They leave from a completely different airport.
A totally different one.
They leave from Eugene F. Correa International Airport, which the locals and the tour operators mostly just call Ogle. And Ogle is a smaller airfield on the eastern edge of the city.
This separation of airports is literally where itineraries go to die.
I can completely see how that happens. You fly into Temeri and you logically assume, like you would in Atlanta or Heathrow, that you can just, catch a connecting domestic flight a few hours later from another terminal in the same building.
It is the ultimate rookie mistake.
It really is.
If you book an international arrival into Temeri at noon and a domestic charter out of Ogle at 2 in the afternoon, you are going to miss your flight.
Because you have to clear customs, get your bags, secure a taxi.
Drive 25 miles north, cross the river, navigate Georgetown traffic, and check in at a completely different airfield.
Yeah, that's not happening in 2 hours.
Not a chance. The dossier is adamant about this. You must plan your internal flight legs around Ogle, not Temeri.
In fact, attempting a same-day transfer is highly discouraged, isn't it?
Highly. You need to get into Georgetown, spend the night, and start your interior expedition the next day.
Okay, so let's say you do that. You arrive, clear customs, get your registered taxi, and you step out into the capital. What is the immediate sensory experience? Like, what is the friction you immediately feel?
The heat and the humidity. It hits you like a physical wall.
Because Georgetown is near the equator, right?
Near the equator, sitting below sea level, protected by a seawall, the air is just heavy. And then, following the heat, is the chaotic energy of the traffic.
And then, of course, the strict necessity of navigating the city safely.
Exactly.
Let's dive into that Georgetown safety trap, because the audit does not pull punches here. There is real opportunistic and petty crime.
There is.
And I want to make sure we discuss this accurately, without fear-mongering, but also without sugarcoating it for the listener.
Right. The risk hierarchy in Guyana is very clear, and at the very top of that list is petty street crime in Georgetown. It requires the exact same hyper-vigilant street smarts you would apply in any major developing world capital.
So you can't just wander around looking at your phone.
Definitely not.
The rules laid out in the dossier for surviving Georgetown safely are incredibly strict. First, let's talk transport. The rule is you only use registered taxis with H-prefix license plates.
The H plates are crucial.
You never, under any circumstances, flag a random unmarked car off the street.
No. Because the lived reality is that unlicensed taxis are a known and persistent risk.
What kind of risk are we talking about?
Well, the cost penalty for making the mistake of getting into an unmarked car ranges from a simple scam where a driver takes you the long way and overcharges you a few dollars, all the way to a serious traumatic loss in a robbery.
Wow. Okay, so it's a completely avoidable trap if you just pay attention.
Exactly. You look for the H plates. Or, honestly, even better, to remove all friction, you just arrange your airport pickups and your evening restaurant transfers directly to the front desk of your hotel.
That seems like the smartest move. Now, the second safety rule is about walking. You absolutely avoid walking alone after dark, particularly near Starbrook Market or along the seawall.
Right.
Now, during the day, Starbrook Market is described as this chaotic, vibrant, beating heart of the city, like a total must-see. But at night, the ecosystem changes entirely.
It really does. Flashing valuables, looking at your phone on a dark corner, walking alone at night, it just invites trouble.
And this dynamic probably affects solo travelers and first-timers the most.
Oh, for sure. Especially if they arrive late on a delayed flight and haven't prearranged a secure transfer. If you are a traveler who is not comfortable applying basic, proactive, urban street smarts, Georgetown is going to feel incredibly stressful to you.
But the city isn't just a gauntlet of safety checks, right? The dossier makes a point to highlight the profound charm of Georgetown once you know how to operate within its rules.
Oh, absolutely. It's not all grit. The architecture is a massive positive surprise for a lot of visitors.
I read about the wooden buildings.
Yes. Georgetown has these incredible historic wooden colonial buildings. St. George's Cathedral, for example, is one of the tallest wooden structures in the world, and it is just stunning.
And the seawall promenade sounds interesting, too.
It is, especially in the late afternoon when the heat breaks. The locals come out to socialize, and it gives the city a very distinct, vibrant character.
And getting around to see those sights during the daylight hours is actually really affordable, right? Short taxi hops within the city limits are cheap. We are talking about $2.50 to $7.50 US.
Very cheap. There is also a network of public minibuses that cost under $1 to ride.
But the audit explicitly warns against the minibuses for most tourists, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. They are incredibly crowded, they drive erratically and very fast, and they are definitely not recommended if you're carrying any luggage or conspicuous valuables.
Makes sense. So the overarching takeaway for Georgetown is that it functions as a working expedition base. You navigate it with awareness. It is not a resort town that wraps you in a protective bubble of comfort the moment you step off the curb.
That's the perfect way to summarize it.
And this reality leads us directly into how you sleep and eat in this city. Because where you choose to establish your base camp in Georgetown will completely dictate your daily budget.
It's really well.
This is where we truly see how the oil boom has fractured the accommodation market into very distinct tiers.
Right. To understand the travel economics of Guyana, we really have to look at Georgetown and the deep interior as two completely different, almost disconnected lodging markets.
Okay, let's break down the Georgetown side first. The audit identifies 4 distinct traveler tiers, and each one faces a very different reality on the ground.
So let's start at the bottom of the ladder, the backpacker and budget tier. We're looking at $30 to $50 US a night.
Okay, $30 to $50, what does that actually get you?
For that price, you are looking at basic guest houses located in residential areas, neighborhoods like Kitty and Queenstown. At this tier, you are fundamentally trading a central, walkable location and modern polish for a lower price.
But there is a massive catch here, going back to our safety discussion.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Because you are out in the residential districts, you are going to be entirely dependent on taxis anytime you want to move after dark.
Right, because you can't just walk to a restaurant. Exactly. This budget tier suits rugged solo adventurers who just need Georgetown as a temporary launch pad before they head into the wilderness. But the trade-off is that you must maintain hyper-awareness regarding your personal security.
So you have to ensure your budget guest house has, like, a secure gate, safe parking if you need it, and a highly reliable taxi contact you can call at night.
Yes, you can't compromise on those things.
Okay, moving one rung up the ladder. The mid-range traveler, usually couples.
Yeah.
This sits around 80 to 120 US dollars a night. The standout property mentioned in the audit for this tier is the Cara Lodge on Comina Street.
Cara Lodge is fantastic. It is frequently recommended because it is a historic boutique hotel. It's actually built in a magnificent colonial wooden house.
Oh, that sounds beautiful.
It really is. It has genuine character, a great restaurant, and crucially, it is centrally located. It is walkable to many of the main daytime sites. So this tier, which also includes various properties clustering around Main Street and the Kingston area, suits travelers who want some historical story and reasonable comfort without paying the astronomical top-tier oil prices.
Yes, but the dossier issues a very specific warning here.
There's always a warning.
Right. Mid-range in Georgetown is quite modest by international standards. And because of the relentless oil boom demand, the value proposition at this tier can slip dramatically when the city gets busy with corporate events.
That is the friction of the boom economy right there.
Exactly. You might be paying $120 for a room that, in a comparable city in neighboring countries, would only cost you $60. You are paying a premium just to secure the booking.
That's wild. Okay, then we step up to the family and comfort tier, which starts at $150 and goes up from there. The primary example cited is the Pegasus Hotel in Kingston.
Right, the Pegasus. Families traveling with children need specific, reliable infrastructure. They need dedicated pool space for the kids to burn off energy in the heat.
Especially in that humidity.
Yes. They need reliable on-site dining so they don't have to navigate city streets at night. And above all, they require generator-backed reliability.
The Pegasus provides that secure, self-contained base.
It does. But again, Guyana is not a natural family holiday destination. A hotel like the Pegasus is just a secure fortress for day trips. The hotel is not the destination itself.
You're not going there just to hang out at the hotel.
No, definitely not.
And finally, we reach the luxury tier. $200 plus per night, and at peak times, significantly higher. We're talking about the Guyana Marriott Georgetown and the newer Aden by Best Western.
These properties anchor the very top end of the market, and the room rates here do not behave like normal leisure rates.
How so?
They climb sharply and suddenly when oil sector conferences, diplomatic summits, or major cricket fixtures at the Providence Stadium roll into town. They can completely sell out, driving prices to astronomical levels.
So you're paying $200, $300, maybe $400 a night. What is the actual trade-off for the leisure traveler at that price?
The painful trade-off is that even at the absolute highest end of the market, you are paying oil boom prices for what is ultimately a regional city product.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you are paying international hub money like you might pay in London or New York, but you are not getting London or New York luxury.
It suits corporate travelers on expense accounts where the company is footing the bill.
Exactly. But for an independent traveler spending their own savings, it can feel like exceptionally poor value.
Here is where it gets really interesting, though. The dossier points out some specific hidden costs at these higher-end hotels that travelers have to actively watch out for.
Oh, the hidden fees are brutal.
Yeah. What are we looking for when they slide that checkout bill across the desk?
You have to watch like a hawk for resort-style service charges and arbitrary local taxes added at the very end of your stay. That can inflate your expected bill by 15 to 20%.
20%. That's a massive surprise at the end of a trip.
It is. Furthermore, across all tiers, from budget to luxury, you must explicitly confirm before booking that the property has an automatic generator backup system.
Because of the power grid.
Yes, the municipal power grid in Georgetown can be unstable. Power reliability really varies.
Yeah.
And I assure you, in that kind of equatorial heat and humidity, losing your air conditioning at 2 in the morning because the grid went down is an utterly miserable experience.
I would literally not be able to sleep. Okay, so the lodging situation is fraught. It's expensive, it's potentially inflated, and you have to dodge hidden fees and power outages.
Okay.
But let's flip the coin entirely because the audit contains a massive silver lining. We need to talk about the food.
Yes.
Because this is where the traveler's money finally, mercifully stretches.
The culinary scene in Guyana is not just cheap, It is a genuine cultural highlight. Guyanese food is incredible, it is deeply flavorful, and it represents phenomenally good value.
It is this amazing historical blend, right? You have Indian, African, Amerindian, Chinese, and Creole influences all mixing together in the same pot. The audit specifically calls out the national dish, which every visitor has to try, pepper pot.
Pepper pot is an absolute must-try. It is an indigenous Amerindian origin stew.
What's in it?
Well, the key ingredient is cassaripe, which is this thick, dark, incredibly savory syrup made from the bitter cassava root.
Okay, interesting.
They take this cassaripe and slowly braise meat, usually beef, pork, or mutton, with cinnamon, hot peppers, and cloves for hours, sometimes days.
Wow.
It is deeply complex and flavorful, usually eaten with thick plate bread to soak up the sauce.
That sounds amazing. And there are other staples too, right?
Oh yeah. Alongside that, you have cook-up rice, which is a rich one-pot dish of rice, beans, meat, and coconut milk. You have incredible roti and curry everywhere, reflecting the strong Indo-Guyanese heritage. And being on the coast and full of rivers, the fresh fish is outstanding.
And the prices are just a breath of fresh air after agonizing over those inflated hotel rates. I mean, a simple, massive local restaurant meal is just $5 to $10 US. A nice sit-down mid-range restaurant is maybe $15 to $25. A local beer is $2 to $4.
It's incredible. And if you go to the bustling food streets around Regent Street and Sheriff Street, you can get a fresh plate of street-side roti and chicken curry for just a few dollars.
That's unbeatable.
It really is. If you want to see the raw produce economy in action, you head to Stabrook Market or Border Market during the day. It is an explosion of tropical fruits, spices, and fresh vegetables.
Let's talk about the mechanics of paying for this, though.
Yeah.
What is the local currency situation?
You are dealing with the Guyanese dollar. In 2026, the exchange rate is holding roughly around 210 to 220 Guyanese dollars to $1 US.
Okay, so when you buy a local street snack and they say it costs 400 to 600 Guyanese dollars, you're only spending 2 or 3 US dollars.
Exactly. Even doing a basic grocery run for bottled water, fresh bread, local fruit, and eggs to stock your guest house is incredibly inexpensive by any Western standard.
I do want to ask about the logistics of dining out, specifically regarding etiquette and safety. So, say I'm eating a $3 street curry in a hot, equatorial working city. My Western stomach is naturally going to sound a minor alarm. What does the audit actually say about the food safety and tipping culture here?
Well, let's address tipping first. Tipping is appreciated, of course, but it is not aggressively expected or mathematically rigid like it is in North America.
Good to know.
Rounding up the bill or leaving 10% at a nice sit-down restaurant is considered generous and polite.
And as for hygiene?
The primary rule is water. You must stick strictly to bottled or chemically treated water that is absolutely essential for visitors. Do not drink the tap water.
Okay, strictly bottled water.
Yes. When it comes to street food, use common sense. Look for stalls that have high turnover and long lines of locals. High turnover means the food hasn't been sitting out in the heat.
That's a great tip anywhere, honestly.
Definitely. Also a fantastic note for vegetarians. Because of the profound Indo-Guyanese influence, it is incredibly easy to find hearty, safe vegetarian food. Dal, vegetable curries, and potato roti are ubiquitous and very cheap.
So if you are disciplined, you can heavily control your daily costs in Georgetown by eating local and taking cheap short-hop taxis.
You can.
But, and this is the massive pivot of the entire deep dive, the exact moment you attempt to leave the capital city to actually see Guyana's core attractions, the budget completely explodes again.
It really does.
Which brings us to the real reason anyone goes through this friction. Let's look at the core attractions, Kaieteur Falls and the Rupununi savannah.
This is the payoff. This is why people endure the heat, the traffic, and the expense. The interior of Guyana contains some of the most pristine, untouched ecosystems left on planet Earth.
Let's start with the crown jewel of the country, Kaieteur Falls. The dossier's physical description of this place is staggering. It is a single-drop waterfall situated deep in the jungle on the Patara River. It is more than 4 times the height of Niagara Falls.
4 times. It is consistently ranked among the most powerful and tallest single-drop waterfalls on the planet. Millions of gallons of water pouring over a sandstone plateau into a prehistoric gorge.
But what makes it truly extraordinary, what makes it a bucket list destination for serious travelers, is not just the sheer physical scale, it is the absolute profound isolation.
Exactly.
That is the exact detail that jumped out at me. I mean, think about Niagara Falls. Niagara has the massive casinos, the giant boat tours packed with people in ponchos, the paved walkways, the neon lights, the fast food chains. Kaieteur has, well, absolutely nothing.
It has almost no safety railings.
Yeah.
There was zero commercialization at the edge of the gorge. There were no crowds.
Not at all.
Nope. Because the only viable way to get there is that expensive, tiny charter flight. The volume of daily visitors is incredibly low. You are standing at the edge of this thundering, massive drop, feeling the vibration in your chest, and you might only be sharing the various viewpoints with your own small tour group of like 8 people.
That is wild. And the audit mentions some very specific, tiny biological details you have to look for while you're standing there, which I found fascinating. Golden frogs.
Yes, the microecology of the falls is as impressive as the macro. There are these tiny, highly toxic golden frogs that live their entire lifespans inside the pools of water that collect in giant tank bromeliads near the falls.
Wow, they just live right there in the plants.
Yeah. You also have to look up and watch for the Kaieteur swifts. These are incredible birds that literally fly straight through the crushing mist to nest in the rock face directly behind the thundering water curtain.
That is insane.
It is a raw, uncrowded, multisensory experience that drone footage or photographs simply cannot capture.
It sounds genuinely life-changing. But the deep dive also extensively covers a completely different region, the Rupununi savannah. This is the deep interior down near the Brazilian border.
If Kaieteur is the geographical and geological wonder of Guyana, the Rupununi is the biological wonder. This is world-class, apex wildlife viewing.
But it's not exactly easy to get around, is it?
No, it is vastly spread out across isolated working cattle ranches and indigenous-run eco-lodges.
The dossier lists some very specific lodges and the hyper-specific wildlife you track from each one. For example, at Karanambu Lodge, you are specifically looking for giant river otters.
Yep, the river otters are a huge draw there.
At Cayman House in Upukari, you are going out on the river at night to tag and release massive black caiman. Rewa Eco Lodge is known for the arapaima, which are these massive prehistoric-looking river fish that actually have to surface debris there, and tracking the elusive harpy eagles.
The harpy eagles are incredible to see in the wild.
And down toward Dadanawa Ranch, you are deep in jaguar country looking for giant anteaters roaming the savannah.
And the crucial context here is that you cannot reliably see these specific animals in this kind of uncrowded, completely unmanaged environment almost anywhere else in the world.
The lodges themselves are tiny, right? Karanambu, Cayman House, Sarama, Rockview, they only have a handful of rustic rooms each.
Exactly. You are not at a massive safari resort. You are a guest at a working scientific outpost or a community-run project.
But we promised the listener the honest verdict today. We cannot just read the brochure. We have to balance the incredible hype with the honest letdowns. What are the disappointments travelers need to brace for when heading into the interior?
The primary reality check is that wildlife is never, ever guaranteed.
It's not a zoo.
No, it isn't. And it's not a tightly managed radio-collared safari park in South Africa either. The Amazon basin and the savannah reward immense, sometimes boring, patience.
So you can't just pop in for a quick visit.
No, if you do a rushed, 2-day dry run expecting a tightly edited BBC nature documentary to unfold magically in front of you, you will likely leave underwhelmed, having only seen a few birds and some tracks in the mud.
That would be a huge bummer. And what about Rupununi Falls? I see that constantly sold as an add-on package to the Kaieteur flight trip.
Ah, yes. This is a very common upsell. Operators often sell Rupununi Falls as a $75 to $150 extra stop on the Kaieteur charter flight.
Is it worth the extra cash?
Well, it is a pleasant spot. The falls roll over jasper rocks and you can actually swim in the water there. But it is a massive step down in scale and drama from Kaieteur.
So temper your expectations.
Exactly. If you pay that extra money expecting a second, mind-blowing wonder of the world, you will be deeply disappointed. It is a nice swimming hole, not a geological marvel.
The extreme isolation that makes Kaieteur and the Rupununi so pristine is exactly the mechanism that creates the biggest, most expensive logistical tracks of the entire trip. Which brings us to the friction traps.
The real hurdles.
Right. We are talking about weather, aviation minimums, and sheer punishing distance.
These are the exact mechanisms that can actually break your itinerary, strand you, and burn your budget if you aren't prepared for them.
Let's start with trap number 1. I am calling it Kaieteur Roulette. We mentioned the staggering price earlier. $270 to $450 for the charter flight from Ogle Airport in Georgetown to the falls.
Yes.
But the trap is that it's not just a simple matter of swiping your credit card, buying a ticket, and showing up at the gate.
Not at all. You have to understand the aviation economics at play. These are small, light aircraft, usually Cessna Caravans or Britain-Norman Islanders, operated by local companies like Evergreen Adventures, Trans-Guyana, Roraima Airways, and Wilderness Explorers.
Okay, so tiny planes.
Very small. The margins on these flights are tight. The aviation economics dictate that they require a minimum payload to be profitable. They generally require 9 to 12 paying passengers to justify starting the engine.
Let me get this straight. Think of this like a tropical version of a ride-share carpool. If I book a tour for a Tuesday, and only 5 other people book the same tour,
The flight does not go.
seriously, they just won't fly.
The operator simply refuses to tune the key. You could be delayed, bumped to another day, or fully canceled simply because the plane isn't full enough to make money.
That is incredibly frustrating, especially if you have limited days. But it gets so much worse because we have to talk about the climate paradox.
Oh, the weather trap is arguably the cruelest irony of the entire Guyana travel experience.
Because the falls, as we said, are fed by the mighty Pataro River. Naturally, the falls are at their absolute most powerful, their most visually thunderous and spectacular during the peak rain seasons.
Right.
And when exactly are those rain seasons?
The primary long rains hit roughly from May through mid-August. Then there is a shorter secondary wet spell around December to January.
Okay, so basic logic dictates that you want to travel when the waterfall has the most water. You want to see it at maximum volume.
It makes sense on paper, but that logical assumption is the trap, because those heavy rains bring low cloud cover and severe tropical storms.
And plains and storms don't mix.
Exactly. When there is low cloud cover sitting over the gorge, those small charter planes cannot navigate safely under visual flight rules. They will scrub the flight.
The lived reality of this, as described in the dossier, is absolutely brutal. Picture this. You budget carefully. You book your $450 tour. You wake up in Georgetown at 6 a.m. It is cloudy. You go to Ogle Airport and the flight is scrubbed.
Yep.
And because of the payload minimums we just talked about, there is zero guarantee of a same-day replacement flight on another airline.
Exactly. If you are on a tight, rigidly planned 3-day trip to Guyana and you lose that flight to weather, you lose the falls entirely.
So you're just out the experience and the money.
Well, the cost penalty is a completely wasted day in Georgetown and potentially a massive fight to get your money refunded if rebooking fails.
So what is the mechanical fix here? How do we beat Kaieteur roulette?
You have to travel during the distinct dry windows. The prime stretch is mid-February through April.
Okay, February to April.
Yes. During this window, the jungle trails are dry, the flights are highly reliable because the skies are clear, and you have the best mathematical odds of actually standing under the sun looking at the falls. There is a second solid window from mid-August through November.
So you are making a conscious trade-off. You sacrifice some of the sheer water volume at the falls for the guarantee of actually getting off the runway.
Exactly. A slightly less thunderous waterfall is infinitely better than sitting in a terminal looking at the rain.
That makes perfect sense.
You also mitigate the passenger minimum risk by booking with a high-volume established operator like Evergreen, who reliably pools passengers and fills planes.
And you probably need to book ahead?
Oh, absolutely. In the peak dry season, you must book 3 to 5 days in advance because they will actually sell out. And most importantly, this is the golden rule of the audit. You absolutely must build a spare, flexible weather buffer day into your Georgetown schedule.
So if your Kaieteur flight is scrubbed on Tuesday, your itinerary must allow you to fly on Wednesday without missing your international flight home.
Exactly. If your work schedule or budget cannot absorb a lost day sitting in a hotel room, you really need to reconsider if Kaieteur is a realistic goal for you.
All right, let's move to trap number 2, interior access, reaching the Rupununi savannah.
Right. If you think getting a flight to Kaieteur is complex, the logistics of reaching the deep interior are on a whole different level of friction. The real apex wildlife is hundreds of miles south of Georgetown.
The dossier outlines 3 ways to get to the main interior hub town, Lethem. Option 1, a one-way domestic flight for $180 to $220.
Okay, standard flight option.
Option 2, renting a seat in a rugged 4x4 for $100 to $150 a day. And option 3, a local minibus for $50 to $70. Now, looking at the spreadsheet, the minibus sounds like an absolute steal.
Until you look at the physical reality of the road.
Is it really that bad?
It is a grueling 12 to 15-hour overland slog. The road is only paved from Georgetown down to the mining town of Linden, which is roughly 100 kilometers.
And the dossier notes that a massive paving rehabilitation project for that first section is due to finish around September 2026. But what happens after Linden?
After Linden, the pavement completely ends. You're on an unpaved, deeply rutted dirt and clay logging road that cuts straight through the rainforest. I want you to imagine driving a washing machine on the spin cycle for 15 hours.
Oh man, that sounds terrible.
In the dry season, it is a bone-rattling, dust-choked, exhausting drive. In the wet season, it turns into deep, impassable clay mud. Vehicles routinely get stuck for days. It is frequently completely impassable.
So that cheap $50 minibus ticket actually costs you a full, miserable day of brutal travel each way, and potentially leaves you completely stranded in the jungle if it rains.
Precisely. And this infrastructure reality is exactly why the eco-lodges themselves are so expensive once you finally arrive.
Because they have to get all their supplies over that same road.
Exactly. Every single thing they use, fuel for the generators, specialized foods, spare parts, building supplies, has to be trucked in over that exact same terrible road or flown in on tiny planes.
Wow, okay, that explains a lot.
Therefore, the lodges run $150 to $300 a night, all-inclusive, just to cover their baseline operating costs.
The practical fix here seems obvious if you have the budget. You fly to Lethem on a scheduled flight, or you charter a plane directly to a lodge's private dirt airstrip, and you book the entire interior leg through a specialized operator who absorbs the logistical headaches.
Yes. The rule of thumb is, if you cannot spare 4 or 5 days minimum, and you do not have the budget for the internal flights, skip the deep interior entirely.
Just don't even try it.
Right. Do not try to drive it on a tight schedule. Just stay in Georgetown and do Kaieteur as a day trip.
Taking all of this extreme friction, the weather roulette, the unpaved mud roads, the aviation economics, and the oil boom hotel prices into account, we have to look at the bottom line. How does this all translate into actual usable daily budgets for different types of travelers? Let's get into the real budgets and the is it worth it matrix. Let's do it. Travelers consistently underestimate the final finances of a Guyana trip because they make a fundamental, catastrophic budgeting error.
Which is?
They look at the incredibly cheap cost of the street food, the low cost of local minibuses, and the affordable guest houses, and they try to mathematically average out the massive, unavoidable lump sum costs of the interior travel.
Right. You cannot take a $450 Kaieteur flight and average it out over a 7-day trip to make your daily spend look reasonable. It breaks the daily budget model entirely.
Exactly. You have to treat the flights and the lodge transfers as separate, massive, standalone line items.
So let's run through the matrix provided in the audit, starting with the backpacker profile. The dossier rates the backpacker experience a 5 out of 10. The daily budget in the city is $50 to $80.
That budget covers a $30 to $50 guest house in a neighborhood like Kitty, eating $15 to $20 of local food at the markets and using shared taxis. That is a highly affordable, viable way to exist in the city. But the verdict from the audit is that this style of travel is only worth it if the backpacker can absorb the $270+ Kaieteur flight as a massive one-off splurge.
Exactly. If your budget genuinely cannot handle that flight, you should skip Guyana entirely because without the falls or the deep interior, you're just sweating in a hot, expensive working city.
Right. Next is the mid-range traveler, usually traveling as a couple. Rating, 7 out of 10. This is the highest rating in the entire dossier. This seems to be the sweet spot for the destination.
It absolutely is the sweet spot. The budget is $150 to $250 a day in Georgetown.
What does that get you?
That gets you the historic Cara Lodge, great mid-range dining, and safe, comfortable transport. The total trip for a strong, well-planned week that successfully combines the Kaieteur flight and a few nights at a Rupununi Lodge will run roughly $1,500 to $2,500 per person.
The dossier calls this demographic the ideal traveler for Guyana right now. It is someone who highly values rare wildlife and uncrowded, pristine nature over plush comfort. But you have to go in knowing it is going to be sweaty, effortful travel.
Absolutely.
What about families? The family profile gets a brutal 5 out of 10.
Yeah, a family of 4 in Georgetown will spend $250 to $400 a day just on a secure, generator-backed hotel like the Pegasus. 3 meals a day, and local transport.
And here is where the math gets absolutely punishing for families. You have to multiply that Kaieteur flight by 4.
4 times 450.
A single day outing to the waterfall for a family of 4 is $1,000 to $1,800.
It's just massive.
The explicit advice in the dossier is to skip Guyana entirely if you have young kids. The heat, the insect load, the malaria risk in the deep interior, the long transfers, it is just too hard.
And if you do go with older, highly adventurous teenagers, pick one marquee experience and do not try to do it all.
Then we have the luxury traveler profile, rating, 6 out of 10. The daily budget here is $300 to $500, easily pushing higher during corporate events.
Right, you're paying $200 plus a night at the Marriott. You are booking private tours, private lodge charters.
But is it actually luxury?
Well, it is worth it only if you view luxury strictly as having exclusive, uncrowded access to world-class wildlife. If you think luxury means a 5-star spa, flawless room service, and manicured grounds, you will be deeply disappointed.
Because of the oil boom.
Exactly. The oil boom means you are paying top-tier international prices for a developing regional product.
Finally, the digital nomad profile, 5 out of 10. The budget is actually quite reasonable on paper, $1,500 to $2,500 a month. A modest apartment is $600 to $1,000.
But the massive catch here is the infrastructure.
The internet.
Yes. The internet is certainly improving with the influx of oil investment, but it is still highly variable, especially outside the capital. Power outages are a constant threat to your workflow. Guyana is an expedition base. It is not a comfortable, reliable remote work hub like Medellin or Bali.
Now, I love that the dossier provides some incredibly practical alternatives for people who are listening to this deep dive and thinking, you know what? The friction is just too high. I want the experience, but I don't want the headache.
It is deeply important to know what else is out there in the region that might better fit your specific travel style and risk tolerance.
Alternative number 1 is Suriname. If you want the exact same wild, dense interior, the rustic jungle lodges, the fascinating Amerindian culture, but you want a cheaper, safer, much more walkable, more charming capital city, you go to Paramaribo in Suriname.
The total costs are roughly similar once you factor in the internal flights you still have to take, but the base city experience in Paramaribo is much easier to manage than Georgetown.
What's the trade-off?
The major trade-off. Suriname simply does not have a geographical wonder like Kaieteur Falls, and its deep jungle wildlife viewing isn't quite on the same world-class level as the Rupununi savannah.
Okay, alternative number 2. Iguazu Falls, situated on the border of Argentina and Brazil. If you are sitting there saying, I just want to see a spectacular, mind-blowing waterfall, I do not want to play charter flight roulette, I want cheap, reliable hotels and scheduled commercial flights on big jets.
Then you go to Iguazu. It is infinitely easier to reach. The daily budgets are significantly lower because the infrastructure is fully developed.
But I'm guessing there are crowds.
Exactly. The trade-off is the exact opposite of Guyana. You trade total solitude for massive, relentless crowds. Iguazu is highly commercialized, with paved walkways, massive tour centers, and thousands of daily visitors.
We have laid out the inflated hotel costs, the complex aviation weather traps, the incredible solitary highs of Kaieteur, and the exhausting, muddy reality of the interior roads. Bringing every piece of this audit together, what is the final synthesis?
The final, definitive verdict is that you must book this trip with extreme care and self-awareness. Guyana in 2026 and 2027 is purely for the highly adventurous traveler. It is for the serious birder, the dedicated wildlife photographer, and the rugged explorer who specifically comes in the dry season, builds in a weather buffer, and brings incredibly realistic expectations about physical comfort.
It is a definitive, unquestionable skip for anyone wanting beaches, nightlife, a resort pool, or an easy, relaxing holiday.
I want to leave you with a broader, somewhat philosophical question to ponder, something that really emerges from reading between the lines of this entire dossier. We have talked extensively today about the friction of traveling in Guyana.
Right, the unpaved, muddy roads, the expensive, unreliable flights, the sheer lack of massive hotels in the deep interior.
That intense logistical friction is exactly what keeps the Rupununi wild. It is exactly what keeps Kaieteur uncrowded and pristine.
The difficulty acts as a natural filter, keeps the masses out.
But the Stabroek oil money is rapidly accelerating infrastructure. The road to Linden is being paved right now, and eventually that pavement will push deeper south. New international hotels are going up in the capital.
Everything is changing.
The very friction that protects this raw wilderness is slowly, inevitably being paved over. So the provocative question is this. As ecotourists, are we inherently chasing an experience that our very presence and the infrastructure built to accommodate us will eventually destroy?
Wow. That is a phenomenal, deeply unsettling point to end on. You want to see the untouched wilderness, but the paved road they built so you can easily go see it is the exact thing that ultimately ruins it.
Exactly.
Well, if this gave you the honest verdict you needed, follow the show. New episodes drop every day.
That is the honest verdict from Phil and H.